Good morning and hello my friends, this is Marta and I'm coming back to you with another project where I'll be using all those leftover scraps I have left after my previous work. I have this lovely frame and I've decided to make it so kinda a glazed effect, and for that I will be using my lots of my embossing powders. But before I start embossing, I am gluing two frames together just to give them a little bit sturdiness. I like to do that, and sometimes I'm sticking 3 or 4 die cut pieces together, one on top of another, and that way you get that lovely chipboardy look. But for today's project, because I'm gonna be doing lots of layers of the embossing powder, I thought that 2 layers will be enough. So before I will start making my embossing, I have those little lovely, very delicate die cuts, and what I like to do, I like to use my Nuvo drops just to add a little berries to those teeny tiny branches. And that way, once I'm completing my other works, I give them a time to properly dry. I'm also adding a splash of color to my leaves, and I will be using exactly the same technique on my leaves as I am doing on the frame. The only one difference is I'll be using 2 different embossing powders on them. I have those lovely translucent, it's like a semi-transparent embossing powders with a little bit like a color and glitter with them, and one is a lovely blue shade called Sea Glass, and the other one it's got the pinkish peach color tone and it's called Taffeta Pink. I will make a list of supplies for this card at my blog, so if anyone is interested you can have a look. I am adding just teeny tiny color to my frame with this very pale like a baby blue ink. However, the ink is dry and it wasn't even very much visible, so you could skip that step if you don't have any pale pink color ink. And now I add some embossing ink and I am sprinkle my frame with this gorgeous sparkly embossing powder. And once it's all there on a close-up for us at the end of the video, you will be able to see how amazing this looks like. So I am using my heat gun tool just to set the powder, and then I will be adding another layers of my embossing powders. My next step will be adding a layer of the clear embossing powder. I am dipping my frame in embossing ink and I will sprinkle it generously with the clear embossing powder. And once it's done, I will be making one more layer as well. For my last layer, I also will be using a clear embossing powder. However, before I'll do that, I am very lightly, just a teeny tiny bit, sprinkling some pink embossing powder. I just take a hair pinch, just like you would add some salt or pepper to your to your meal. I just sprinkle it and then I coat everything else with the clear embossing powder. If you're gonna do the pink ink without the clear embossing powder, that will leave you this effect of the splashes. However, because I am melting them two together, it just looks like this glossy marbly effect tile. Now look on the frame, my friends, it's just looking gorgeously. I am gonna be doing exactly the same steps for my leaves. However, this time I am switching to the blue color palette. I have this little container of the Sea Glass embossing powder, and then I will be using some clear embossing powder and a teeny tiny bit of the blue color embossing powder. You will see it at the end results on my close-up photos how gorgeously this looks. I really love that technique, and I know it's taken a little bit of time. However, the embellishments you are creating with it, they just look spectacular, and they're so shiny and rich color, and there is some glitter and texture. And because we're melting the clear embossing powder with a drops of color embossing powder, this creates this illusion of marbling, and I just love it. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if you can see it as well, however, I fell in love with the sleeves. They just look fabulous. And this is something I really like to do. I don't do it very often, however, it's something, especially if you're planning to make something, you know, special on a card, and you just want to have, like, you don't have a many embellishments and you want to have this like a fabulous accent. It's just something you can, you know, create easily, and then your embellishments, I guarantee it to you, your embellishments will stand up. However, if you don't have those fancy embossing powders like I do, what you can do, you can first use a little bit of the glue and just dab it, like with the help of the kitchen sponge, just dab it on your embellishments and sprinkle it with the glitter. And once the glitter is settled, you just add a coat of the clear embossing powder. And preferably, if you have, you can add a color embossing powder as well. However, if you don't, just do some splashes and then add another layer of the clear embossing powder on top of that. It's not gonna be exactly the same effect, however, it will be something close up to it, and also will be looking nice. You just have to experiment a little bit and just to, you know, try to do something differently. This is what I love to do. The crafting is just the one big journey when you can discover new things every single day. Now I am using my tracing tool just to add some additional dimension to my front panel. I am also forming the edges with the help of my fingers. I am just squishing them here and there just to make the form even more interesting. As you can see, it's just lovely design, and if you're gonna do that, you don't really need a lot of layers, because that way you can achieve this interesting look without having to put a lot of your mats. I'm also gonna be cutting myself couple banners, and I will be cutting them in the fishtail and like I will be cutting the ends in the fishtails, and then I will use the same tracing tool all around the edges. I am just quickly making myself a dry run just to see how more or less my composition will be look like, or is there still anything I need to add or some larger elements I should think of. So at this point, I've decided to add additional panel as well. I had the scrap pieces left over from the fairy I was cutting on one of my previous cards, and this is just a small piece of pattern paper, so this is a perfect fit, and that way I could use the scrap without reaching for a new page. And of course, some of you knows me well, and you know by now that if I'm not 100% happy with my project, I will be starting to make elements once again. At this point, I've decided that those branches with those blue berries, they are too strong color, and I want to have the berries in some like a milder tone. So I cut those branches once again, and I'm using the same blue color pearlescent glue just to add some shininess and a splash of color. And now I am using this lovely very light lavender Nova drops, and I'm doing those berries once again. There's no a waste for me in this, because I will find the usage for those branches with the blueberries later on for my another project, so I'm not too much worried about that. It's just because I had so many like blue colors around my leaves, I just wanted something to will be having a slightly different tone, and that way it will be a lovely transgression between my blue leaves and the pinkish color flowers. I found this lovely blue color pattern paper, and I'm not sure what company the paper comes from because I received it as a gift, and now I will be cutting a circle. I want to fill this frame with some lovely pattern paper just so it will pop up even more. I have this little sentiment saying to dear mom, like a loving mom, and that was leftovers from the uh, cards I was making for the Mother's Day. Now it's time to start assembling my cards. For that, I am using my hot glue gun, which I really love, and I am not being very precise. I'm just adding a dash of glue here and there, and I'm still letting my edges to be lifted a little bit. This is a lovely trick to add dimension to your projects when your elements, they're not 100% like entirely glued to the page. And as you can see, I cut my lace in two different pieces, and I've stick one on the side and then one underneath my circle frame. And at this point, I also decided that the blue banner, the one on the top side, is actually too wide. So what am I doing? I am just cutting it from both sides just to make it a little bit narrower, and that way it's not overtaken this top part, because on this little pattern paper I add to my front panel, there is a lovely design, and I just didn't want this banner to just just to overtake it entirely. I still want to have this pattern to be visible from underneath. I am trying to position all the elements, and I have this lovely like a very thin embellishments which I cut from the memory box die, and I cut them in two different colors. One is a dark blue teal and the other one is a pink color tone. I have raised my inner circle with the double-sided tape, and I've got this foam tape. I think it's 2 mm thick, and I really like to use it to make my elements pop from the card even more. And I will try to make a perfect composition for my flowers and leaf arrangement on my card, and once I have it ready, I will stick it together with the hot glue gun. I've got myself prepare a few sheets of the blue ribbon, but eventually I've decided to use a much lighter shade. I am adding the florist sizzle to the left bottom corner of my circle frame, and that way I have this lovely base for my floral arrangement. I really like to do it, and it not only provide this lovely cushioning for your flowers, but it also something which is add this lovely touch to your card, and it makes it look special even more. So here I am making my bow, and I'm using a piece of the jewelry wire to make it. I really love that technique, and I think it just makes them looks really nice. I add my ribbon, and I am really happy that in the last minute I've decided to go with the lighter shade, because it's really complement my card very nicely. So that will be my card for today. I hope you have enjoyed my video, and if you do, please don't forget to subscribe and like it and share it with your friends. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me. I wish you all a wonderful day. Stay blessed, Marta.